Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. What I wanted to talk to you guys about today is gecko food. Now, this is something that's came to my attention recently and I thought it was pretty interesting and I thought I would share it with you guys today. Now, just a warning before we get into this video that there is going to be a lot of math involved. Now, I did most of it for you guys, but for some of it, if you want to calculate how much your gecko is eating and stuff like that, you're going to have to do a little bit of math. It's pretty simple and I have the equation for you, so no worries there, but I'm just giving you guys that warning because there is going to be a lot of math floating around in this video. But anyway, let's get right into the video and about the food. So a couple days ago, I was feeding my geckos and, I'm just thinking about it. I'm like, I go through quite a bit of food. I wonder how much all this is costing me per year because this is a lot of food, it seems like. And, I started doing some math. I started doing some research and it's actually quite surprising. And I thought you guys might like to hear about it today. I'm going to be using Pangea food for this video just because that's what I feed my geckos, so it would only make sense that I use Pangea. Now, after doing a little bit of research, it comes out that Repashy is slightly cheaper, I believe. But for this video, we're going to be using Pangea because that's what I use. So hopefully you guys can follow along with that. And we're going to start this video off by showing you guys how much your gecko is costing you per year. And then we're going to talk a little bit about my geckos. So if you guys would like to calculate how much it costs you per year to feed your gecko, I have a simple equation for you. I'll put it up on screen right now so you guys can follow along. So what we're going to do is we're going to take how many geckos you have. So figure out how many geckos you have that are going to be eating Pangea diet. So we're going to be doing this example equation with one gecko. Let's say I have one gecko, right? So you take your one gecko and you multiply it by how much they're being fed. So I feed my geckos roughly 1 gram per feeding. So we're going to multiply it by 1. So 1 times 1 is 1. So the next thing to multiply is by how many times a year you're feeding them. Now I feed mine roughly every other day. So that comes out to about 182 times a year that I'm going to feed them. If you're feeding more or less, you're going to need to do the calculation for that. But we're just going to say I'm feeding them every other day. So you take your 1 times your 1, which is 1, and you multiply it by 182. So now we're at 182. And the last thing to multiply it by is one of these decimals I'm going to have on screen. Now what these decimals are is you need to pick out what size bag of food you're using to feed them. Now this can get very difficult if you're using two different size bags, like you have an 8-ounce bag and then you have a 32-ounce bag. So we're going to be saying you only have one bag. So just pick which one you use more or which one's the bigger one. But if you're using two different kinds of bags, you can figure it out. It just gets a lot more confusing. So let's just say you're using a 2-ounce bag of Pangea food. You only have one gecko. You only really need the small bag maybe. So, it's not that big of a deal, right? So you got your one gecko, your 1 gram of food, 182 times a year that you're feeding them, and you're going to multiply it by 0.14 since you're feeding them out of a 2-ounce bag. Now, if you do all this multiplication, it comes out to roughly $26 rounded up. So you would know that it's costing you $26 a year to feed that gecko. Now that might not seem that bad if you only have one gecko. 26 bucks, that's pretty cheap spread over an entire year. Not too bad, right? So now I thought we'd talk a little bit about my gecko situation. So, if you have more than one gecko, that's going to be a little bit different for you, but I thought we'd give you guys some cool information here about how much it would actually cost to feed my geckos using 2-ounce bags or just feed them in general. So before we get into that, there's a little bit of background information that we need here. So I'm going to have a chart up on the screen right now. And basically what this chart is, it takes all the Pangea sizes of food that you can buy, how many grams they are, how much it costs per bag, and how much it costs per gram. Now, basically what this all means is we're just calculating how much per gram it costs to feed your geckos. So the 2-ounce bag you can see is 14 cents per gram, right? Now let's say you go down to the 32-ounce bag of food. It's only 6.5 cents per gram roughly. So, you're paying more than double if you use a 2-ounce bag. Even the 8-ounce bag, for example, is 8 cents a gram. That's almost half the price of the 2-ounce bag. So you can imagine that if you're thinking about buying that 2-ounce bag and you said instead got an 8-ounce bag, the food is it's less than half the price almost. So you're saving yourself a lot of money if you just buy the bigger bag. And that's kind of the main point of this video. I'm hopefully going to get that across when I show you guys how much it would actually cost to feed my geckos. But this is just something kind of crazy that I found, and I thought you guys might like to hear it. So another thing to keep in mind is my geckos eat roughly 3,000 grams of food a year. So, they're eating quite a bit of food. In comparison, the 10-pound bag of food is 4,500 grams. So, they're eating almost like 8 pounds of food a year. If we did this with if I was feeding my geckos on 2-ounce bags of food, it would cost me $407 a year to feed my geckos. Now that's pretty crazy, right? Now, if I was feeding them on 8-ounce bags of food only, like I'm only using 8-ounce bags, it would only cost me $232. So I'm saving myself more than $100, $170 almost, if I just buy one size bigger bag. So if you're someone who's feeding a lot of geckos on 2-ounce bags, which you probably aren't because that's just stupid, but if you are wasting an enormous amount of money that you could be saving. And every size bag after that, it gets slightly cheaper. So like the 8-ounce bags, it would cost me $232, 16 is $224, and it goes down by about $20 to $30 every size bigger you go. But just that initial drop from the 2-ounce bag to the 8-ounce bag, is crazy. It's almost double from the 8-ounce to the 2-ounce, 232 to 407. That's just super crazy to me how much of a difference that is in price to feed my 16 geckos that I would need to be feeding. Hopefully this video wasn't too confusing, and hopefully it helps you out. Hopefully it changes your mind on the price of food here and what size bag you should be buying. One thing to be mentioned though is you don't want to be buying a super big bag to save money, but then you end up wasting half of it because it goes bad. Like let's say you're feeding one gecko. Obviously you're not going to buy the 10-pound bag of food because that would last you like 12 years or something of one gecko, and it would be trash by then. So you kind of got to figure out how much they're eating and times it by how many times a year you're feeding them to figure out how much they eat. So that's all that I did. I'm feeding them 1 gram 182 times a year. You can figure that each gecko eats about 180 grams of food. I'm going to put all this math down below in the description so you can find it easily if you're trying to calculate how much you're spending a year on your gecko's food. But this is probably one of the biggest costs that you're going to have for your crested gecko, and I didn't realize the amount of money that I could have been spending on food. I'm just happy that I didn't buy any 2-ounce bags of food. Hopefully this video helped you guys, and I will see you guys in the next video.